Introducing Unusual Gallery Sperience by Jake Clover. And here is what we have to go off of visually. Got a bear, explosions, missiles, and of course this isn't a gallery, and you are a dude without a face, at least when zoomed out, of course, because, you know, maybe the details appear as you zoom in. And something to actually note is this actually has a lot of views relative to what is usual for this. For the games so far. The games before this have had like 1.5 to 2K views. This is 5.4K, 21 likes. So somehow 11 years ago, November 17th, 2011, this actually caught attention. Not sure how. I'm not sure if this was like on the front page of some storefront, you know, metaphorically speaking. Not a literal storefront, but like a front of a game hosting website. Maybe the musical man fantomenk on Newgrounds promoted it, and that guy had like a pretty big audience. Yeah, I'm not sure. The description goes, maybe this adventure to the art gallery wasn't such a good idea after all. No, not because modern art is dead boring, but because a wacky levitating bear is after you firing paint rockets. And then there's a series of hyphens or dashes, whatever you prefer. Action. Run to the exit in each level until you escape. This is made in Action Game Maker. So maybe that's where action comes from. Making the connections there. And we'll get to the comments later. Let's just boot up the game. So something I've noticed immediately is that this is not a full screen game, and you kind of have to force it to be full screen. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because now I'm playing on what appears to be like a 480p sort of resolution, not literally 480p. Something not full screen is what I'm trying to say. Very small resolution. And of course, as was just shown on screen, you are in a gallery, apparently being chased by a bear who's levitating, and to escape you gotta use arrows. And it's such a shame, like, I can't... Painting's fun. It's such a shame that I can't really just admire the art at my own pace. Especially because it feels like every time I go to a museum, I have the security breathing down my neck. And I almost mean that metaphorically. You know, I'm just enjoying some of the more abstract art, the paintings out there. And for some reason, I have to have the security try to survey me, try to make sure I'm not doing anything that would involve the plans of a heist. So, you know, just putting that aside, one thing I think this game probably has the best soundtrack of all the ones I've listened to so far. This is like this. Well, that's a very powerful attack. And now I understand. I see that the okay. I see that the attacks really change depending on the stage. And not only that, but I'm like restarting from the first stage for some reason. I'm not commenting enough on the messages that occur when you die, because I feel that's a little bit redundant. You could already see I got splattered, right? You don't need me, or do you? Or should I announce it? I don't know. Fully dead. See, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of stating the obvious. But another obvious thing that's on here is that the bear is levitating in a pose that indicates meditation. So perhaps the bear is somehow, I would not say at peace, because if the bear was at peace with itself, it wouldn't be doing what it's currently doing. It wouldn't be trying to terrorize a gallery onlooker. I think clearly the bear has a lot of deep-seated, you know, like behavior that just is not professional. I don't think it's okay, like, for this to happen. See, that is, I think, unacceptable, and it's pretty much damaging property. I I'm surprised. Like, there's no one in the there's no museum security. The aforementioned museum security is okay with a meditating, levitating bear with paint missiles hunting down a specific, proponent of such a magnificent abstract modern art. I think that is like secretly the sort of message that is being pushed here, right? Because of course we as people should not expect ourselves to be hunted by bears of this caliber. That's ridiculous. But it is clearly more of a testament to the standing of the museum, the problems that are inherent in the system of museums, of their attempts to showcase canvases across the entire nation of wherever you reside. Not a specific nation. Okay, so I'm not talking about a specific nation. So what I really mean is just worldwide, right? I think it is just actually quite informational when you view it from that perspective. This is a little bit of a problematic. Okay, let me get. I don't know what you do there. That maybe I'm not supposed to run there. I mean, and it's from that perspective. It's actually quite informational what Jake Clover is trying to promote when the commentary on just the viewing experience for museums, for such curation, because like, can museum curators really say, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, can they really say that they completely care about the system of viewing if this is what they allow? Because this is basically a implicit. Oh man, this guy's gonna get me again. Oh, almost there. Because this is, well, I wasn't almost there. Like the song by Gorillaz, it's there, but almost. Those are the actual lyrics. Don't look them up. I understand what Jake Clover is actually trying to tell us, right? Museum curators just don't care enough to have a more free viewing experience for those who are watching, not watching. Well, I guess watching, right? Like, unless you imagine a painting as television, which I assume that there are some, I'll say, enlightened, maybe pretentious individuals out there who think of looking at a painting as viewing television. But then I think there's a little bit of irony there, right? Because we think of television, maybe not anymore, but back in the day, the whole idea that television melts your brain. Is that not like the case anymore? Maybe we've become so accustomed to Netflix, to all sorts of streaming shows, that we're okay with such television services of the television variety. I think I'm done. Such services of the variety that provide television series to us, that we have accepted that brains do not melt at a room temperature and under the influence of television, right? We now realize that is perhaps a scientific fact. I'll watch Bill Nye, and he's gonna have a documentary on Netflix about how brains melt in response to whatever waves television gives off. I don't even know what waves the TV would give off. No one could answer that. Wait, no, well, there's probably someone who can answer it. And who could answer it? Maybe every single person who has ever been to a museum. Every single museum attendee. Even the museums with just the more stranger methods of entry, right? Like not that you pay like a $5 fee. I don't even know if museums are $5 nowadays. I think last time I went to one, it was like $20. And this is where I'm getting to it, right? $20 museum, but on top of that, like, what if there are other museums that the sort of entry they demand is not $20, but it's like you gotta pay with stickers. You gotta get one of those like bobby pins, the same type that in Fallout that's what you use to lockpick, right? And what if they mean that literally, like they want you to lockpick to enter the museum? And it's just ridiculous. Like, I understand a lot of art is experimental, especially for painting. Visual art can be pretty experimental. I honestly cannot give you provide you any experimental visual art on the spot right now. But suffice to say, if film can be pretty experimental, if music can be experimental, I just assume this for visual art, for paintings, right? And so if and also like poems, I guess, but like poems, it's harder to see like what an experimental poem looks like. Like, I mean, if you think about it, right, like slam poetry was once pretty experimental, because who was doing that ever? Who was ever doing experimental? No, like when poetry, right? When I imagine you got a traditional poet, they're reading William Faulkner or like Ernest Hemingway, and then out of nowhere they're like, "What is slam poetry?" Right? That sounds pretty different. And it's from that perspective, you would think, okay, slam poetry is pretty experimental. This is the dude's about to burst. Almost there, by the way. I don't think I'm almost there. I think this guy's gonna get. Ooh. Oh, well, almost there again. Oh, he's gonna burst again. Oh, I can't believe this. I have to actually use the mechanics of the game. So anyway, like considering that there's a lot of experimental art out there, and in a sense, like slam poetry, right? I guess that would have been experimental at one point, because like because that had to start as a trend, right? Similarly, I imagine one may argue that at some point in time, Dark Souls was an experimental piece of work. The game Dark Souls. That the game Dark Souls was once an experimental piece of work. And it mostly because it started a trend, right? We have Souls-likes of all sorts. There's like that one recent kind of Bloodborne, Victorian era, mechanical, like steampunk Souls-like that it's like Lies of P, right? Who's P and why is he lying? It's that sort of trend. Yeah, that's what it was. That's what I was looking for. It's that sort of trend that reminds us that like Dark Souls in a sense is experimental, right? I think that's fair to say. I think Dark Souls is experimental when it came out. And I understand that Dark Souls borrows a lot of inspiration from other games, and I understand that Demon Souls came out before Dark Souls, but Dark Souls started the trend, right? And I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too lenient with the idea of what experimentation means. But I think I also do think if you start a trend, you were probably experimental in some way. You probably did something very different that people had to be influenced by it. So in a way, is Slay the Spire experimental? It probably is, because it's kind of the only roguelike deck builder that has really maybe done the formula the most to the highest extent, right? And I understand there's Monster Train. I haven't played Monster Train yet, but I understand like now it's not the only deck builder, but it is worth noting, right? Once upon a time, it was just Slay the Spire. But you'll also have a lot of other people say, well, okay, like there are other card games, right? And obviously they're not roguelikes, but similarly, like these are other card games, like maybe the arena mode for Hearthstone. I don't know how many people are really going to say that, but I guess there is an argument there to be had if one wanted to argue it. But I imagine most people are going to be like, nah, Slay the Spire really did its own thing. That's experimental. So to my entire point, right, was that I think visual experimentation is, I can't describe it, but I know it has to happen. That has to be a trend. And by extension, museums are constantly being exposed to these trends that I think they themselves are inspired to also take up the trend and be experimental themselves. Yeah, every time the dude blows down the wall. Anyway, a lot of museums are inspired themselves to take part of these trends, but how do they do that, right? They're simply hosting the art. I'm sure that's a massive simplification. You're going to get some sort of museum employee who's going to be who's going to type maybe roughly a 256 word essay, and they're going to divide that in two eventually because they're going to realize it's too long, and these 128, and then they're going to realize they were typing in sets of like 64 for some reason, and they're going to explain that museums do way more than just showcase art, right? They're concert venues or they're actual public venues to expose children, the youth, to all sorts of creative engagement, right? How can we have the art of the future if the people of today are not influenced? Yeah, of course. I can see. Okay, here. This is hard. Look at this. How can I dodge that? That's a tight corridor. So anyway, and of course, I think museums are just naturally inspired to take part in that sort of experimentation in the way that they can. And maybe somewhere along the way, you'll see that they have experimental payment systems or systems to verify payment, if anything. I don't know how often that really happens, though. I mean, it's just, I remember the last time I went to a museum, it had like a pin. I don't know the full name. Like art pins. Wow, that guy actually predicted where it's gonna go. Like a TF2 rocket, direct hit rocket league, direct hit rocket. Like a. So anyway, that's what I think. Like, I think some museums, I think they go a little bit too crazy with the theme. I think that was the point I was trying to make. And if you think about it, this is also a pretty crazy theme, right? The whole theme of like levitating, apparently enlightened bear. Like the dude is clearly enlightened. He's like Zenyatta from Overwatch, like when he's ulted, right? The whole like lights, the strobe lights, I guess. Which, speaking of strobe lights, that actually really does fit with the theme music, right? I actually think this is the best music of all the games so far. This reminds me of the type of thing that I would say it's drum and bass, right? Just a little bit acidic, because you can hear the squelching, I think, in the background. This is the type of thing I think Machine Girl actually composed a little bit on the Neon White Volume 1, the Wicked Heart, the Volume 1 Wicked Heart OST. Reminds me of Rigged Game, that one. Just has the same strong snare and bass line. Oh. Okay, there we go. Attached to it, and again, like the whole squelching sort of acidic influence. Maybe a little bit IDM influence. I don't know enough IDM. I've listened to Boards of Canada so many times, and I'm going to be honest. This is going to be a hot take. I think they're kind of boring. Every time I listen to Boards of Canada, I'm just wondering, like, why did I decide to listen to this today? So I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the guy to explode. And, well, he did do it. So my patience was rewarded. Patience is a virtue. Although, kind of, I have to admit a little bit, it's really hard to be patient here. Mostly because I think the hitboxes for the missiles are just actually pretty big. It's like in Team Fortress 2 using the Huntsman, it's like the actual hitbox that you're trying to hit is just not in line with the model entirely. You're hitting a block, like a rectangle, which represents the character hit or hurt box, right? The hurt box of the Team Fortress 2 class. And you're not actually hitting like exactly the head, for example. You're hitting like a square or a rectangle. And now that I think about it, right? I imagine a lot of things. Well, rip. Yeah, that's hard to dodge. I imagine that there are a lot of, like throughout, just games in general, a lot of hurt boxes are just squares or rectangles. And, what other places there for a square or rectangle within a museum, right? Like, I think essentially, if I wanted to be incredibly minimalist, I would say, well, aren't paintings just like squares and shapes? And again, like you have like that one experimental piece. It doesn't even use any shapes somehow. They just like redefine it's like pointillism or something like that. Like this is super flat movement, bro. You don't understand, man. I'm only using circles as a shape, avant-garde. And then like the other dudes, they just use squares as shapes. And then you realize, oh no, that's just Atari graphics, bro. Dude, this guy won't blow up the wall in front. His missiles are simultaneously too weak on a short fuse, and it's I get it now. There's like there's a timer. They don't care about surface. About the surface they hit. It's about the timer. So it is at this point, my right hand is pretty tired from hitting the arrow keys all day. And I'm switching to the left hand, and it's actually a really clever statement by Jake Clover, because Imagine how many artists have to switch between their hands. Right, I understand. There's like that one right hand, left hand. Recent, not recent, but like it's probably been a kind of a historical trend to see right hand, left hand comparisons of art skill. You see that the right hand is just so much more versatile, actual refined. Like the right hand is like refined oil, and the left hand is like crude oil, and it just shows you how slick it all is. And the crude oil is actually paint oil, just replace like crude paint oil. That must be real. So anyway, it's pretty interesting that oh, I saw a Rainbow reference. Wow, he really does reference his own games. I mean, obviously it's in the actual experience. Yeah, I'm not looking where I'm going. That's why I went there. It's in the actual experience title drop, right? Experience, explosive, explodum. For some reason, there's the avoidance of the EX, which is very contrary to what you may find in a game like Street Fighter, right? Because in Street Fighter, you got EX moves. I think that's what they call them. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I was surprised it was a new area. So anyway, I think that's what they call the meter moves in Street Fighter 4, but especially I think Street Fighter Alpha, maybe Street Fighter Third Strike. I don't remember. I don't even know what they call them in Street Fighter 6. I haven't seen anything about Street Fighter 6. I just know that people like it. The one time Capcom actually redeemed themselves fighting game wise, that's actually, I want to say, unexpected. Well, it shouldn't be unexpected. They're on a roll right now with the amount of people. The one time you blew up in the wall, right? I think Capcom is like actually, dude, that dude was on top of me. You can't outrun him. Like Capcom is clearly outdoing themselves. I think with Resident Evil 4, with some other release I forgot, with Street Fighter 6. When's God Hand? Nah, I'm just playing. Yeah, everyone likes Capcom. That is but I for a while I had like a bad opinion of them because of Street Fighter 5, because I think Street Fighter 5 is just not the Street Fighter sequel to 4 that everyone wanted. But anyway, that's kind of like neither here nor there. I mean, why am I talking about Street Fighter when I'm in the museum fighting for my life? The museum fighter. When's museum fighter like won? You know? Oh, dude. Oh, is this it? Nah, that guy. Nah, I'm done. Oh, I got out there. Wow, finally. Art place. That's what I call a museum too. And I escaped. That was so. No, that wasn't the first try. It wasn't the second. It was just one of the many tries, right? And it just goes to show, like, what something Jake Clover does incredibly well is to make sure that the performer, the player is a performer, not simply just a player, but the performer can escape all the vices and lean themselves into virtue if they just try, really put in effort into escaping the levitating, enlightened, wacky bear with paint missiles that are on a specific timed fuse, which reminds me of a lot of other things you can connect to a museum, apparently. Well then, yeah, so let's, I'm doing mouse 1, there's mouse 2, I'm doing mouse 3, got scroll bar, okay. Hitting WASD, hitting the arrow keys, okay. Nothing I can do. Oh, okay, well, I clicked the space bar and it closed. Space bar got a little bit of power. So now it's time, I guess, to review. Yeah, now it's time to review. So to review the comments, Flamin' Fox says, man, that was crazy. 5 out of 5. The first 5 out of 5 for this game ever given. People who love this game will say that this is actually fake. And apparently this video is just a complete run of it, and it's 10 years old. GG, look at that. That dude says what I say. Dear developer, I love you for making this game. Sincerely, this is my name, 212. And this person is trying to make it as if they were writing a letter and using like a typewriter. Feli Pep into 980. You're exaggerating the difficulty. I assume that they were responding to a comment that does not exist anymore. This game is insane, dude. I love the soundtrack. Yeah, this is the best soundtrack of all the games so far. A tough game, but I really enjoyed it. It's very addicting. Fuck that bear. Amazing game, though. See, this person doesn't understand what the bear represents. Really fun, but it's impossible to outrun that bear. Is this game autobiographical? This dude, indie game, he understands. He understands. Being chased by a bear really is the museum experience. Or experience. Yeah, I apologize. I'm not pronouncing it the way it was meant to be pronounced. Indie lover. You think this person listens to Neutral Milk Hotel? I think it's a coin flip. But what isn't 50-50 is the rating they give. That's a 5 out of 5 because this game is so fun. The music and art is just perfect. Yeah, I think the music and art's pretty good. Jelly Gal, the one who returns often. I'm going to say, right, this is going to be the meme. This person is the meme. I really wanted to like this game. It's funny. It's got great graphics and awesome music. The concept is hilarious, but the gameplay is just not good. Sometimes the bear decides to hover in the exact spot you're in, and there's nothing you can do about it. That is just completely true. Sometimes it just hovers in front of you for a really long time, and you're forced to keep jumping over and over. I wish I could, but I cannot recommend this game. Now that is like a fan's brutal honesty in the flesh, or mostly in the digital appearance, the nano machines, because this isn't, or well, they're made of jelly, so in the jelly and the gelatin. And I think that these criticisms are actually about right. Sometimes it just hovers in front of you and you're forced to keep jumping. I would say that's like 95% true. The 5% is because you can't actually just keep jumping in front or jumping over and over because there's clearly a time limit until the bear just goes haywire, until they go hard as a Mother Hubbard. What is the rating they gave it on this website, Glitchwave? Oh, it's also a 1 out of 5, 2 ratings. One person gave it a 4 out of 10. The other person gave it a 1.5 out of 5. So that's a 3 out of 10, which apparently totals up to a 1 out of 5. Yeah, a lot of people they just don't appreciate real classical art. They're too busy listening to Tabula Rasa by Arvo Part. I hope that's his name. Wait, hold on, let me look up. Yeah, it is. Well, I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce the name. Look at that. Real. That's real. That's a real dude. I made a real reference to classical work. So here's the real review. Design, mechanics. You run using arrow keys. Yeah, there's not much to it. You have to keep track of the missiles. Resource management, 1 life. Pretty much 1 life. And pretty much what I said here about the missiles applies again. You have to keep track of them to break walls and to make sure the timer doesn't go off. So the timer obviously being until the bear goes into the manic phase and just blows everyone up. So is it fun? Is it fun? I think this sort of escape the museum game, I don't know, I'm a little bit in between, right? I think that if it were tweaked to be more balanced, it could be fun. If man, this is a hard one to answer. I feel that this could be fun in theory because of how fast it is as a game, but it's also just not. It's also just very mechanically simple, and that's when you realize you can't have this be dragged out for too long. Graphics. I think the graphics are actually pretty good. It reminds me of Game Boy graphics. I just realized I forgot to show the desktop. Oh wow. Well, I have to fix that. Anyway, so graphics are really good. Game Boy Advance style. Soundtrack And sound, oh, I'm sorry, whoops. I'm skipping ahead. Ease of use. Yeah, it's really easy. You just use arrow keys. So for appearance, I would say the hurt boxes or well, maybe hurt box of the character and the hitboxes of the missile are a little bit deceptive. It seems that the missiles hit more often than they should, because it feels like sometimes you actually do jump over them, but maybe that's incorrect. Soundtrack, best song so far. Sound design, yeah, if I remember, I think the explosions were basically what you wanted, not blasting the speakers. The story and writing. You are chased by an enlightened bear. That's the story. There's not really too much writing. You have to escape the museum. Is it repetitive? Yeah. Constant restarts. And this game is it's like what Jelly Gal said here. Sometimes the bear decides to hover in the exact spot you're in and there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes it just hovers in front of you for a really long time but yeah, pretty much, right? Constant restarts, the bear decides what to do. If it's hovering on top of you, you are going to restart. Where does it stand in the wider scheme of all things gamer? So I haven't played a lot of Escape the Museum type games, so I can't really compare it, but I do think that there are other fast-paced games like this with platforming. I feel I could say more here. It's not like necessarily innovating in how we think about chase sequences, but it's also hard to find games like this, I guess. Where does it stand amongst the work of the developer? I think this game is the kind of the most definitive. Like when I say that, I mean it takes the difficulty of the other games, but it actually manages to have the ending of like the Rainbow Kitty. So this game has the difficulty of Tomato Fro, Draco Mortis, Rainbow Kitty with the ending like a definitive ending akin to Rainbow Kitty and Tomato Fro. And I imagine if I finished some of the other games I didn't really finish, I would also probably include the mirror. I feel Roadkill Bonanza. I think Roadkill Bonanza is too difficult compared to Gallery Sperience. Rainbow Kitty is too easy. The tomato game is as difficult. Splodem Down is more difficult. And I think Draco Mortis is as difficult. And I think that about wraps it up, mostly because I realize I need to re-record some stuff. There, that's Tabula Rasa. That's Arvo Part.